more about me. I grew up in a home with both of my parents, with two older brothers and one younger sister. So growing up in that home with two older brothers, I was teased and tormented a lot, which my younger sister and probably my cousin can attest to. But we lived a comfortable life. Never did I think that something that I would do in high school would have an impact on so many children, in Africa. Like, I never imagined I would be helping kids in Uganda. When I thought of my life, I thought I was going to be, making all the money I could, living in a big house with a big family, just like I was raised. But I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, and now I'm going to break some of my walls down and tell you my story and my background. I went to the same school since I was in kindergarten. I had the same friends from elementary school, middle school, up until my 7th grade year. Once my 8th grade year, school came around, everything just kind of started falling apart. The friends that I had started ignoring me, or they would spread some vicious rumors about me. And that was really hard. The girls that I once called my sisters, my best friends that I loved like my family, had started turning on me and hanging out with these people that openly hated me. The reason that I honestly have no idea why. They would say things like I'm fat, ugly, and worthless. But you guys can see I'm a bigger girl. So as I was growing up, they liked to point that out a lot. One time, actually, in my 8th grade year, I received a death threat because I was so worthless and didn't deserve to live because I had no place on this earth. My parents saw what was going on, but they didn't really know how to handle it. They approached the school board, they approached the vice principal, and they sat down with them and expected them to change things. But unfortunately, nothing changed. From that point, we started looking at different schools. So my freshman year of high school, we were, our financial situation was becoming really, really poor. I'm not going to go too much into that, but my family, we lost everything. And when that happened, we were treated like outcasts, even in our neighborhood with our neighbors. When we were moving out, they would drive by, not even look at us. They would be walking their dogs or the children, and they would openly avoid us. They would walk a lot faster. We ended up moving to Sycamore, where I met some amazing girls. I went out for their soccer team, so go Ladies! I went out to their soccer team and practiced with them all summer long. And as every athlete knows, summer conditioning is the worst thing imaginable. But one morning, while we were getting our gear on, I was not eavesdropping, but I was kind of listening to Sally Evans and Stephanie Adamak talk about Sally's summer. Sally had just gotten back from Africa, and she was telling all these amazing stories that I'm like, okay, you saw this on National Geographic, you're lying, this isn't real. And I finally broke my silence. I'm like, how did you go? How was that possible? And she started telling me more about You for You, because she was the president at the time. When I heard about it, I'm like, okay, that's pretty neat. Never did I think I would be so involved as I am today. But Sally kind of coerced me, you could say, in going to the first meeting. She actually kind of dragged me after school that day to the meeting. But I was so glad she did. I went in not expecting much, but I was so surprised when I found over 50 students sitting in an auditorium-like room, eagerly listening to what Sally had to say about his kids in Uganda. I had never even heard about Uganda, let alone the problems that it faced. I didn't know that there was a 20-year-long civil war that had happened. I didn't know that child soldiers was a real thing. I saw it in movies, but never did I think that it was actually real. But my sophomore year of high school is when I really signed on board with You for You. With my sophomore year of high school, it brought a lot of great things, but it also brought a lot of heartbreak. And when I say heartbreak, I'm talking about the typical high school relationship that everyone's like, oh, it's going to last forever. We're so in love. Which I know probably a lot of you guys. Can I see a show of hands who feels that way? Actually, raise your hand. guys are, yeah. Here's another one. It's nothing big because it does happen. But that was my first relationship ever. Like ever. I was so excited to have a boyfriend that I completely neglected everything else. My schoolwork, my involvement with U4U, my athletics, everything. It started going downhill because of this boy. And that's exactly what he was. He was a boy, nothing more. That's not a hit on you guys, but boys are... Anyway, so that year we went to prom, and 3 days after prom, I had found out that he was cheating on me with one of my friends from my soccer team. Not my school team, but my club team. Needless to say, I was heartbroken. I felt like my world was caving in around me. All the typical stereotypes that one would feel when they're broken up, like going through that kind of situation. But I didn't deal with it the right way. Having gone through all the bullying that I faced and then this, I was stuck in this deep, horrible depression, and it was the worst thing I could ever think of. When I was bullied, I helped myself by self-mutilation, which is cutting yourselves, if you guys didn't know that. I'm not proud of it, but the scars are part of my past. So it's something that I just need to accept, and I hope you guys don't look down on me for it, because the way I changed in my sophomore year was I knew that if I went back down that road of self-mutilation and self-harm, then I probably would not make it out again. I probably would have been dead. So I got more involved with U4U. I needed something to take my mind off the pain that I was feeling. When I say I got more involved, I mean my junior and senior year I was the class representative for Sycamore High School, which basically means I got my grade to come to all the events. Sorry guys, I'm cheering up, but anyway. But I went to all the citywide events. You know, I met Abby, and I promised her then that I would do everything in my power to support the kids in our program. And making her that promise, I felt a renewed sense of urgency to actually do what I had promised. Never before had I felt this way about something. Like I could say, yeah, Mom, I promise I'll clean my room, whatever. Which I'm sure everyone knows, like, yeah, I'll do that next month when it's 20 times worse. But when I told Abby this, I felt something like stir in my heart that I actually needed to follow through with my promise. And when that happened, something reawoke in me that I hadn't felt in so long, and that's the compassion that had died when I was being bullied. I became a very closed-off person. Slowly, as I got even more involved with U4U, I started to realize that it wasn't the All About Abby show, that I may have problems and that I may have gone through so much, but there are still so many kids who have it so much worse than I do. And with the promise that I had made, I knew I had to do something to change it. I had never before imagined that I would be vital to so many kids, and that's exactly what you guys are. As an individual, like, I didn't feel like I could change the lives of so many kids, but through the involvement with U4U, I was able to actually see that I was helping these kids, and by default their families, help them get a better life. Even though I had come to term with my depression and my self-image and my self-value and how I was changing that, I would still struggle with my inner demons every now and then. I still had that little devil on my shoulder telling me all these evil things, that I was just such an ugly person, so horrible, and I just want you guys to know that you're not alone if you're going through that. During the leadership overnight, at the beginning of my senior year, I talked to Connie about what I would need to do to go to Uganda that summer. I felt like I needed to, like that had to be my summer to go. And Connie, you know that she's a no-nonsense person, and she will not sugarcoat anything. She will tell you how it is. And she basically told me that if she didn't know me, then I was not involved enough. And so, with that being said, I got even more involved with U4U. Not only did I go to the citywide events for Sycamore, but I also went to the council meetings that are held once a month at the end of the month. I also went to other events for other schools. I mean, I got actively involved. Driving home from work one evening, I received a phone call from none other than Miss Connie Ray herself, telling me the news that I never thought I would hear. I was actually going to Uganda. Now that I had the good news, I actually had to work super hard to make it real. Because of our financial situation, we weren't able to pay, by ourselves for the trip. So we began fundraising. Honestly, it was a miracle that I was even able to go because 2 nights before the plane ticket money was due, I was still $700 short. And I am forever grateful to everyone who opened their hearts and their wallets so that I was able to make that trip. The traveling was actually very, I'm so sorry I'm not keeping up the slides, but I'm super involved in this. Anyway, the traveling was really tiresome, and I'm going to have a great picture of that. It was really tiresome, but it seemed like a lifetime before we finally reached Gulu. When we did, we were greeted warmly by a dinner at Will's house. The first full day we spent relaxing. I mean, if you can call going on a safari a relaxing thing. It was really amazing. And that night, I went home and I looked at my pictures that I had taken of the first couple days. And when I was looking through those pictures, I broke down. And I'm so glad my roommate wasn't in there because I did not want to have to explain it. But I broke down. I was so much fatter and uglier than all the other girls on the trip. And I'm going to actually read you what I wrote that night because I feel like this is the journal that I took, big notebook. So this is what I wrote that night about what I was feeling. Today is better than yesterday. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm feeling. This will sound selfish, but I feel extremely self-conscious. I'm the biggest person on this trip, and while bigger is better in Uganda, I'm stuck in my American state of mind. I feel like no one wants to sit next to me for that. For lack of room, I look at myself in those pictures and I cringe. I look hideous next to these people. I don't know how to tell people this without crying, obviously. I'm afraid that sounds terribly selfish, especially since the reason I'm here is because of the kids and not me. I get that. And that's another reason I won't tell anyone about this. Oops. I'm so ashamed of myself. Even as I write this, I'm crying. I've learned just to laugh at it in public and make jokes about it before someone else does, and then cry about it later. There's no use in embarrassing myself further by crying in public. I guess we'll see what the doctor says when I go back home. And by that I mean, they thought I had a thyroid disorder because I played soccer my whole life and I was still this big. So with that being said, that night was horrible. The next morning, which was the third day we were in Gulu, we started our work. We went and did some home visits for the children that were in our program. The very first home visit we went on was to see a boy by the name of Ojak Bruno, who was supported by Moeller High School. I, however, was told that I would be given a child interview later that day, and I was in charge of just taking pictures of this home visit. So, the first village we were at, I was helping a girl by the name of Emcee Sharon with chores. This little girl and I connected through these chores. And by the time we got back to her village with the water, I let her use my camera so I could see the world through her eyes. I told her to go around and take pictures of everything that she thought was interesting. napkin away, and I started laughing and asked her what she was doing. She replied, so beautiful, Elang, I want so many more of you to keep for myself. And for those of you who don't know, Elang means beautiful in the Acholi language. At this, I smiled, not really knowing what else to say other than a grateful thank you. It didn't dawn on me until that night what really happened that day. This little girl, who I had never met before, who didn't know anything about me, my past, or what I had been through, thinks I am so beautiful. This young girl, who has so much less than I do, who is so underprivileged for the great heart that she has, thinks I'm gorgeous. So who am I to think that I'm so ugly and fat? And now I'm going to read you my journal entry from that day, like after I had been with Sharon. I had an epiphany today while I was washing my clothes. While we were at WhatUGANDado's village, me and Sharon were playing with my camera. I let her see it so she could take pictures around the village. Instead, she stood in front of me and took several pictures. When I asked her what she was doing, she said, "You are so beautiful, Elang, I want many of you for me." Why do I think I'm so hideous when these beautiful girls who have so much less than me think I'm gorgeous? For that reason, I'm getting Elang tattooed on my thigh under my scars to forever remind me of what Sharon said. Don't worry, Mom and Dad, I haven't gotten that yet. I will one day. And then that's what I wrote about that. Like, I wish I had written more about that. But that one event has changed the course of my trip, and by default, my life. I stopped looking for superficial beauty and started looking for a deeper beauty, the beauty of the heart and the soul. I changed my goals for life. Like I said, I used to want to make all the money in the world and live a comfortable life like I had grown up with. But now, I want to get my nurse practitioner's license and start up or work with an existing clinic in Gulu. I have even toyed with the possibility of working with the mentors in Unified for Uganda and still providing physicals for the children in our program. And today, here I stand in front of you as the Emcee of Unified for Uganda, a testament that not only can you go through so much, but you can do great things. I'm a freshman at Wright State University, going for my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, and working towards my nurse practitioner's license. I'm the founder and president of Unified for Uganda at Wright State University, despite Connie's advice about taking a break the first semester. Like I said, my ultimate goal is to move back to Uganda and work with healthcare professionals there, while maintaining involvement with Unified for Uganda. Now that you have not only heard Will's story, but my story as well, I hope you realize that you don't have to be extraordinary to do extraordinary things. There's a quote that I really want to emphasize, and that is, someone can't